What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and Terry Crews is taking heat again for making a completely factual statement. Now, Terry Crews has often found himself on the wrong side of social justice issues, and I honestly think a lot of it stems from people on the left who want a black man, a strong, accomplished black man, to constantly parrot their narrative. It's a form of racism to also expect all black people to be a monolith, to expect them all to think the same. And I pointed out in a tweet that I didn't understand this mentality. The whole black people calling other black people Oreos if they're trying to do good in school, or to have their blackness TM constantly brought into question by other black folks. It really reminds me of the crabs in a bucket saying, right? The saying goes that, why don't fishermen put buckets on lids on buckets of crabs? Some kid walks by and says, hey, why don't you put lids on them? Well, because crabs are always pulling each other back down. You can go look at the video from the LA riots, the black man who owns a hardware store ranting at people who had destroyed his store, saying, I came from the hood. Why did you ruin my store? This is a real thing, and you can't dismiss me by simply saying white, opinion discredited. I have eyes. I can see this on Twitter all the time. In fact, I see it in the actual thread that I replied to. You see Terry Crews saying, any black person who calls me a coon or Uncle Tom for promoting equality is a black supremacist, because they have determined who's black and who is not. I would take that further. As a white man, allow me to correct your statement, Terry Crews. The level of blackness is also an interesting thing, to which I replied, only in the black community will you see them berate each other by the level of darkness in their skin and push anyone who isn't a part of the hive mind out as a coon. Seriously, why does the black community do this? ? Wow. And then you have Devontae Thomas coming saying, basically, interesting, you must know a lot about the community you never grew up in. Essentially, you're white, your opinion doesn't matter. I don't need to be black to see it happen. You can look at this, you can read the thread, and you can see all the backlash that Terry Crews got. He had to basically come out and quantify what he said, saying, I agree, I'm not discussing white people here. There are gatekeepers of blackness within our own community who decide who's black and who's not. I've often been called out for not being black enough. How can that be? And this is Godfrey, the comedian. Again, Terry Crews does try to look at things, I think, from both sides. He has more nuanced takes, but people don't like that because they want their token black to fall in line. They want Terry Crews to just retweet hashtag Black Lives Matter. They don't understand that Terry Crews, a black man, whom, by the way, I love on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, has some nuance to his take. What's wrong with that? He goes on to say, I believe it is important we not suffer from groupthink, and we keep minds of our own. And be allowed to ask difficult questions to each other. I believe this dialogue is important as we get through this trauma together. I love you. But that isn't good enough. You can see, according to Bounding into Comics here, interesting article. You can see here, Deadpool 2 actor Terry Crews under fire for equality is the truth tweet. Deadpool and Brooklyn Nine-Nine actor Terry Crews found himself at the center of a maelstrom due to a tweet in which he called for unity between white and black people. Imagine that. Terry Crews is not a stranger to standing up for himself and being ignored, by the way, by the black community, ridiculed for coming out and saying that Terry Crews, I was taken advantage of by a Hollywood executive. Brooklyn Nine-Nine star says he did not speak out after an unnamed high-level executive grabbed a handful of his junk for fear of being ostracized. I mean, Terry has always seemed to be really honest and upfront. He took a step forward and talked about what happened to him. Crews described how at an industry function in 2016, an unnamed male executive took a handful of his junk in front of his wife and grinned like a jerk at the pair's shocked response. He said that he was tempted to retaliate, but worried how the incident would be reported and feared he would get locked up. 240-pound black man stomps out Hollywood honcho would be the headline the next day, he wrote. I don't disagree. Cruz said that the executive later called to apologize, but didn't give a reason for his action. Cruz chose not to publicize the incident for fear of being ostracized, par for the course when this person is powerful and has a lot of influence. I mean, Terry Crews, nobody talked about him, right? You know, Terry Crews has always been outspoken, and he's always told things how he sees them. But unfortunately, for some, you know, the black man doesn't do what we want our little token black man to do, and that becomes a problem. Cruz wrote, defeating white supremacy without white people creates black supremacy. Equality is the truth. He concluded, like it or not, we're all in this together. Following this tweet, Cruz would be criticized by author Kevin Powell, who wrote, this makes absolutely no sense. Makes every black self-hating assumption that black folks would actually try to do harm to white people in major ways when there's no proof of history of any such behavior, even remotely close. Really? Please read books, sir. Nothing like talking down. And of course he replied, that's not what I'm saying at all. Paul responded in kind, Terry, with due respect, given your platform, you cannot just post something like that, even remotely suggest that black people would fall into black supremacy if we battle white without white people. Really? The Black Panthers aren't a thing? What about those people who make white people kiss their boots? What about the Black Israelites or something like that? Of course this mindset exists in the black community. Are you joking? Is it as reported? Is it as widespread? No, but to act like it doesn't exist is obviously absurd. Cruz then responded, Kevin, I've learned that people will take anything you say and twist it for their own evil. Anything. Cruz would respond to a number of other individuals and elaborate his original tweet. In response to Dear White People and Whiskey Cavalier actor Tyler James Williams, Cruz wrote, I understand, Tyler. I was not saying black supremacy exists because it doesn't. I'm saying that if blacks and whites don't continue to work together, bad attitudes and resentment can create dangerous self-righteousness. That's all. That's probably what he should have wrote in his initial tweet. But this is, again, what this really is the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Get in line, Terry Crews. You have the same color skin as everyone else, so you should think and speak exactly the same way. In another response to Godfrey, Cruz wrote, I agree. I'm not discussing white people here. There are gatekeepers of blackness within our own community who decide who's black and who's not. This is just a verifiable truth. And I've often been called out for not being, quote, black enough. How can that be? Cruz would be heavily criticized and attacked in some instances by a number of people for his tweets. American Gods actor Orlando Jones replied to Cruz, black supremacy? We represent 13% of the population, hold no institutional power, and gaslight our coworkers. What are you talking about? There's a black president for 8 years. We got 99 problems, and your math isn't the only one. Stronger together. The Roots, Michael Harriot wrote, why not just stick to tweeting about things you know, like the complexities of shirking or intricate steps involved in jiving? Oh, okay. Right. Interesting tweet. He had it, but nah, Terry Crews would rather explain why the people who created and perpetuated white supremacy must be protected when dismantling it. This is such a ridiculous, unproductive conversation. The idea that, you know, here you go, another perfect example. He then shared an image of men in black captioning a live look inside of Terry Crews' head, meaning Terry Crews isn't allowed to have his own opinion because he's black, and therefore it must mirror what everyone else in the black community says. You know, and this is just sad. His coon chip activated on high per usual. They're literally proving him correct. They're literally all these people calling him a coon are proving him correct. I don't even understand. Cruz will respond to the name calling, saying any black person who calls me a coon or an Uncle Tom for promoting equality is such, because they have determined who's black and who isn't. Most recently wrote, I know that everything I've said comes with the spirit of love and reconciliation for the black community first, then the world as a whole, in hopes to see a better future for black people. In a subsequent tweet, I believe it's important we don't suffer from groupthink and keep minds of our own and be allowed to ask difficult questions of each other. But that's not possible, is it? That's not possible in the Black community, at least in terms of what's on social media, because look what happened. He was pounced on and basically referred to as not Black because he didn't push the same narrative as everyone else. Not shocked, though. Terry, stay strong. You're entitled to your opinion. And to be honest, when it's not the same hive mind that I see from everyone else, you know, a bunch of multi-millionaire Black people in Hollywood talking about how they're oppressed, I mean, it doesn't really ring true to me, does it? I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.